AM 590 KXSP Omaha's ESPN Radio. Pull them belts tight, because it's time for the front stretch. Presented by Kosiski Auto Parts at 50th and I Street.
Welcome to the front stretch, a great edition of the front stretch. Excited to have you join us for yet another great hour of dirt track and NASCAR conversation. As we always do, the first part of the show this year's going to be a little bit of NASCAR talk, maybe some dirt track if we got something to talk about. And then in turn 3 and 4, we're going to continue our Legends of the Dirt series as we're going to talk with Kyle Berck. Great conversation, and I was very excited when we got done interviewing him because when we interviewed a couple of these drivers, they do the ums, the ands, those long pauses, and so it takes me forever to edit the interviews. I'm sitting here watching it on my screen, and I didn't have to edit hardly anything. So I might actually get to drink tonight.
Yeah,
rather than go home and edit.
Yeah, if you don't listen to the Marquette Missile, you're missing something because it's going to fly by.
He's got a lot of great insights. Obviously a talented driver, and we kind of talked about this with him. You know, some of you may be saying, "Oh, Kyle Berck, he's not a legend yet." Well, that's the reason why we threw him in there is because of the word "yet." Once he does retire and hangs up that wheel full time, you better darn well believe he's going to be thrown in the legends category.
Anybody that's raced over 30 years and done as many wins as Kyle Berck has, going on close to 300, is a legend, whether he's still sitting behind a wheel or he's sitting at home watching it on TV.
Here's why you want to listen to the Marquette Missile, Kyle Berck. We're going to hear about Kyle Berck and gun control.
Yes. Why there should be gun control. So be sure to listen to that in turns 3 and 4. This is the front stretch. Presented by Kosiski Auto Parts, 51st and I Street in Omaha. Joe, we talked about this when you came to us, and we kind of started doing this whole, you guys sponsoring the show during the off season and the 12 weeks during it, that you wanted to offer some specials for the listeners. Are we ready to kind of let them know about that, or you want to give it another week of working on the schedule?
Let's get it past Christmas here, and then we'll get some of them specials out.
Typically, January, when you save a little bit of money, that's when you're going to want to save some money for some auto repair.
Buddy finally came to our place and looked it all over, and
finally,
I took him down. No, I took him through the whole business.
No, he didn't just sit up in the leather chairs.
No, he didn't just sit up front and order a set of tires or something this time. I actually took him through the whole business, and Buddy says, "Wow, I never knew it consisted of all this."
51st and I Street, down there by the Kmart is the best place to get it to. You can also get directions and phone numbers off their website, Kosiski.com. Let's talk about some of this NASCAR news that's going on. The big news of the week is we got our first experience of what they're calling Gen 6, the Generation 6 car, the car that replaced the car of tomorrow, out on the track this week. Tested on Tuesday and Wednesday. The Wednesday late session in the afternoon was cut short because of rain, but we're seeing speeds of 293, 292. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, holy smokes.
300-mile-an-hour cup cars, all right.
Hey, I'm ready to go.
193, 192 up in those areas. I think the biggest thing that's coming out of this, and I didn't realize how many of these drivers absolutely hated what they had dubbed the COT, the car that came out in 2005 and made its debut. And they're absolutely loving this car.
Aren't they running them at Charlotte this weekend?
Yep.
I think I read a tweet today from Joey Logano that said it rained out and they got out of there a little faster than what they should have.
Yeah, they've got a lot of testing scheduled because, basically since they started on you read a tweet. I just caught that.
I'm sitting over here, I'm looking at it right now going.
My son sprouted at me. Tweet? Yeah, I read a tweet today, and Joey Logano got out a little early today.
Never tweeted, and he's tweeting.
Wow. All of a sudden.
So what's your hashtag?
The old man at the table was reading tweets today.
So do you have a Twitter account? Obviously,
no, I do not have a Twitter account.
We're just going to start calling you BK. You're the new Brad of the studio.
Hey, that's all right. I'll tell you what, I wished I made the money Brad did last year. I'd laugh at all you guys.
Why, I tell you. They were talking about this, and maybe this is one thing we can talk about in turn 2. There was an article written last week after we recorded the show from the Sporting World about how underpaid NASCAR drivers are. Yeah, yep, that pause. Underpaid NASCAR drivers are. So we'll get into that into turn 2. But
wasn't that article, from what I can remember, it was about because they are putting their lives on the line, and I don't truthfully believe that any more than a football player or a lot of them guys. They're in very safe equipment with the safer barrier walls. Yes, it used to be that they were maybe underpaid for some of the dangerous places they put themselves, but I think today a NASCAR driver gets paid very well for what he does. I'll tell you what, I would trade games with them any day today.
Yeah, we'll get into that in turn 2, but I want to talk a little bit about this COT in the next gen car. Dale Earnhardt Jr. had some great things to say about it, so I think he pretty much endorsed it. He was one of the drivers I knew absolutely hated the COT. Said that it was top heavy, it was a pain in the butt, you didn't feel much of the car, you didn't have much of a, kind of that reaction. I know that's something that all three of you guys in here as dirt drivers, you have to feel the tire on the dirt. You've got to feel the car the way it kind of wiggles and sways a little bit. And he said with the COT, that went away. Remember,
you're going to hear Kyle in a little bit say the same exact thing about feeling the race car.
Right, exactly. And hopefully this Gen 6, if you want to see pictures of it, I think just the way these cars look.
That's what I love about them.
Is justification enough. But these drivers are talking about how they're racy, how, with the COT, NASCAR kind of tried to go for making it a level playing field so that guys down who didn't have as much talent could still race with guys who have all the talent in the world. I think we're learning that that's not a good thing to have.
We've been arguing that for, all last season we argued that with the nationwide guys. There's somebody in the ARCA series that should be able to move up. Some even in the dirt circuit. The Kyle Berck, the Scott Bloomquist, those guys. Why aren't those guys there? And why is Morgan Shepherd or Derek Cope being the starting park car? God. Those guys aren't, they're not good anymore.
How old is Morgan Shepherd?
89, or is that his number?
Honestly, I can't remember the last time I heard Morgan Shepherd being called.
For some reason, I want to say Morgan was like right around 74, 70 or 74. He's up there.
He's in the 70s.
But the Gen 6 car, if you haven't seen pictures of it, you can head over to our Facebook page and check them out. It's the front stretch. Just search for it, and we've got all the pictures posted. I was looking at the color schemes and some of the paint schemes for cars, and I know people are going to scream bias, but I think the baddest looking car out there is Tony Stewart's Bass Pro Shop car. It's got that Chevy, the front of it. It just looks insane, and he's got a nice, sleek black cover. But you can go and check out all those pictures on our Facebook page and check out the paint schemes for 2013. Some of these cars look absolutely phenomenal.
Joe, remember back in the 80s when you had the Oldsmobiles, the Pontiacs, the Chevys, the Fords? You could look at a Cup car when Rusty Wallace is, trading paint with Dale Earnhardt, and then you got Darrell Waltrip. You could identify, just seeing the car without being told, you could identify what car was what make and model. And it seems to me in the last 15, 20 years, we went away from that. And to me, the cars all pretty much look the same, to my opinion. Now, the new cars coming out, the thing I like about them is they look like almost street cars. You could see the front end differences. You could see the body lines on the sides of the cars. You could see how the sail panels on the roof flow back into the rear quarter panels. That, I think, is exciting for NASCAR. What do you think?
Well, when they start getting these cars where their aerodynamics shows that one car is going to be better than another, you don't want the teams to change over. And that's what happened back in them days is the teams started changing over, so they had to make the cars look the same to keep Ford and GM and, Toyota and all them involved. As soon as it happens again that these cars, the aerodynamics shows that one car is better than the other, the teams will change quicker than they can wait in order to find out when's NASCAR going to change something for my car to run with them.
Coming up in turn 2, we're going to talk about the money these drivers make, and then we'll get into the conversation with Kyle Berck as a part of our Legends of the Dirt series. We'll be right back here on the Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
The Silver Dollar Nationals are returning to I-80 Speedway on July 18th, 19th, and 20th. Don't miss the nation's top USMTS, MLRA, and Lucas Oil dirt late model racers as they compete at Nebraska's fastest track. Come watch the nation's best dirt track racers compete for a $27,000 to win payout. Ticket prices and packages at 402-342-3453. The third annual Silver Dollar Nationals at I-80 Speedway, July 18th, 19th, and 20th.
Kosiski Auto Parts is the Metro's premier auto parts store. Located at 50th and I Street, Kosiski Auto Parts will help you find the replacement part you need to get back on the road. Give one of their experienced salespeople a call today at 731-4592. Let Kosiski Auto Parts and Team PRP find your quality used replacement part. Kosiski Auto Parts offers warranties on all parts that leave their store, so you have peace of mind. Open Monday to Friday, 8 to 5:30, or 24 hours a day at Kosiski.com.
Are you ready for fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping, wheel-to-wheel racing right here in the Metro? Get to Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs and see what it's like to race real go-karts. Joe's Karting knows it's no fun to race go-karts at 10 miles per hour, so they ripped the governors out, and now the only restriction is how good you are at racing. It's full-throttle, white-knuckle racing every day of the week. Head over to joeskarting.com for hours, prices, and specials, or give Buddy a call today and set up your group races at 712-256-5278.
This is the Front Stretch on AM 590, powered by Kosiski Auto Parts. Quality used parts at an affordable price. Now, back to the Front Stretch.
Welcome back to the Front Stretch. This is, well, the Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio. You know what?
Did you forget where we were from?
Look at me like that. We're just a week away from Christmas, and listen, I checked out about a month ago, so back off.
I never knew you checked in.
It's debatable. Presented by Kosiski Auto Parts, 51st and I Street in Omaha. Kosiski.com is where you can get all your information. Also on their Facebook page. Stop by, get yourself quality used parts with from Team PRP, and maybe you will get a tweet out of Joe Kosiski. Yeah, if you listen to the last turn, you know what we're talking about. If not, as you can always do, head over to our YouTube page and you can catch up on all of our interviews. Last week we had a great interview, Legends of the Dirt series with Terry Phillips. Week before that we talked, Kelly Shyrock was last weekend. Terry Phillips was the first week. Later on in the next turn, we're going to talk with Kyle Berck. Working on some great interviews for the Legends of the Dirt series, and we're really excited about it. Before we get to that Kyle Berck interview, I want to talk to you guys about this article that came out, and I did breeze through it a little bit, and the idea I got from it was, compared to your upper paid guys like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Mike Vick, who was the first player in NFL history to get back-to-back $100 million plus contracts, and then he got into a little bit of trouble. But, you know, I think Brad Keselowski, after things all said and done, they estimated he took home about $12 million. That's a lot of money. But I would imagine that when you're the lead guy on an NBA championship team or a World Series team or a Super Bowl winning team, you're making a little bit more than $12 million. So that the comparison there, do you think it's fair? I mean, I got a little perturbed by it. In fact, I got pretty irritated when listening to it and saying, well, these drivers don't get paid enough. I think they get paid plenty.
I think the drivers get paid plenty. I think the NFL players get paid too much, but they do and they don't, because NASCAR's got to think about it. They got to buy cars. They got to buy motors. They got to buy more stuff than an NFL team has to buy. But do I think they're underpaid? No, I think they're greatly paid. I just think that NFL, the NBA, the MLB, whatever you want to call it, professional bowlers, they all get paid way too much.
I think when people say that NASCAR drivers are underpaid, I think they see or hear the reports about, you know, back in the day, Jeff Gordon getting $200 million, and I'm just throwing numbers out there. It could be more, it could be less.
It's a lot less than that.
Okay, let's say $30 million sponsorship for, you know, from DuPont, or this team's doing an estimated, you know, $1.5 million sponsorship. That money is not going to the drivers. That's going to the organization to put that driver on the track. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, you know, and you're right, Dan, it's up to the driver's performance on the track. They get a portion of the race winnings, but when you run good on the track, it's just like the dirt track. You know, Jesse Saubin's a prime example. He runs good on the dirt track, but with him running good on the dirt track, his merchandise goes through the roof.
Yeah,
and that's what funds his racing, and that's what the ladies and gentlemen in this sport. That's where the majority of their income comes from.
And that's the way these contracts are set up. They get a portion of a lot of it. They get a portion of the merchandise sales. They get a portion of their winnings. And they get a portion of their sponsorships that they're helping to bring in, and then they get their contract pay from their organization that's bringing them in. And there's drivers like I think I heard one year Tony Stewart made an estimated $26 million off of everything, and that was back when he was racing for Joe Gibbs Racing. Your top paid drivers: Dale Earnhardt, obviously, Tony Stewart, Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon. These are your top paid drivers, and I don't think Brad Keselowski is anywhere close to one of those top paid drivers.
I don't think so either. And you know, I've been good friends with Clint Boyer for a long time, and back when Clint signed with Cheerios, the last 3 years with Richard Childress, when he come out of I believe it was the Jack Daniels car. And the reason that he got that, and Casey Mears went to the Jack Daniels car because Jack Daniels wouldn't sponsor him for another 3 years, and Childress didn't want to lose Clint at the time. Well, Clint got $21 million for sponsorship. Now, that's all you ever heard is that Clint got $21 million. Well, that $21 million was to Clint Boyer. That had nothing to do with the team. We really don't know if the team got $50 million or $100 million, when you say that it's supposed to be giving the money to the team to share. The $21 million went to Clint. Clint got 50% of his winnings, and when he won, he got 100% of his winnings, and then he got 10% of all the T-shirt sales. So he says, back when he was with Jack Daniels, he was making a lot of money, just 10% on all of his T-shirt and souvenir sales. He was making a lot of money.
The one thing I do give all NASCAR drivers, and even when you get down into the USMTS, the NASCAR, the IMCA drivers, all the dirt track drivers, how often do you ever really hear these guys go, I don't get paid enough? I don't, especially in NASCAR, you don't see Jeff Gordon or even, Bush, the Bush brothers on TV. I don't get paid enough to do this sport. But then, like you had mentioned, Dan, we got the NHL lockout. We've had the basketball lockout before. We've had the MLB lockout before. And to me, I automatically gave the drivers that much more respect because of that, because it really, truly shows that they honestly, truly love their sport that they compete in.
Let me ask you this, just before we wrap up and head over to the Kyle Berck interview. Do you guys think that sponsors are getting too much power in NASCAR?
I think so.
Because you're hearing this a lot more.
Whoa. Who's the customer? I mean, in my business, the customer has all the power. And you know what? They're the guy bringing the money to the tables, the customer to each one of them drivers and teams.
I don't think we're debating the logic behind it. It makes sense. I mean, the sponsors are what keeps this thing going. It's the sponsors and the fans that keep this sport going.
Okay, hold on.
But let me just ask.
No, I screwed up. I screwed up with your original question. Do the sponsors have too much pull within the sport? I remember, who was it here? It was like 8 years ago. There was a logo that came out on a car, and NASCAR said no.
Well,
that was with Verizon and
No, it was before that.
Was that Mark Martin and the Viagra one and Victoria's Secret or whatever?
That might have been it. Oh no, it was a Jack Daniels. It was an alcohol.
It was because beer is okay, but for a long time liquor was outlawed.
Yeah,
liquor sponsorship cannot make its way into
I kind of jumped the gun on your original question.
It's more the smoking products. It was Skoal and a couple of them that got outlawed, and that was more because of the national. You couldn't put it on TV. I mean, they couldn't put it on billboards or anything.
Well, even for the longest time, Jack Daniels and the harder whiskeys weren't allowed in NASCAR either. Exactly. And that's the reason why you saw all of a sudden Jack Daniels was in and Clint drove the 07 car, even though there was another 7 car because it was the old number 7. But my question is, we're hearing this stuff like I'm fairly certain one of the biggest reasons why Joey Logano was no longer at Joe Gibbs Racing is because Home Depot is sick and tired of losing to Lowe's. Do sponsors have too much of a say? As far as
when it comes to the Joey Logano incident, yeah.
Well, I mean, should a sponsor affect where a driver parks his car?
Well,
yeah.
Dan, absolutely.
The sponsor basically owns the team, is the way I see it. I think the sponsor could tell, because Gibbs is going, please don't leave me, Home Depot. Please don't leave me, and Home Depot's going, find me a new driver or I'm out of here. I think they basically own Gibbs' team, not Gibbs.
I mean, I think they own the driver, not the team. I think it's more the driver than the team.
They own
Home
kind
Depot's
of a
with the
partial
Gibbs.
of both. I mean, Home Depot told Gibbs, you get me a different driver. 5 Hour Energy says, I want Clint Boyer to drive my car. So each one has got its own way of getting into the sport. 5 Hour Energy says, here you go, Richard Childress, keep Clint. We'll give you $5 million or $7 million a year, whatever it is, to keep him aboard. That isn't enough. Okay, so Clint says, well, I got to take it somewhere else because I don't have a contract.
Yeah.
And then Home Depot is set up just totally different. But dang, these guys are spending millions of dollars. I feel they've got a right. I mean, think about M&M's. Do you want an image when Kyle Busch was throwing his little tissy fits? Do you want an image that Kyle Busch is going to go back and maybe do something wrong? I mean, I don't want my name mixed up with Kyle Busch then. But all of a sudden, Kyle Busch straightens out. M&M says, he's the guy I want giving the kids my candy.
And just around the corner, we're going to talk with Kyle Berck, driver of the number 14 late model, and a great conversation we have with Kyle as a part of our Legends of the Dirt series. We really appreciate you sticking with us. We'll be right back with Kyle Berck here on the Front Stretch, presented by Koziski Auto Parts on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
Are you ready for fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping, wheel-to-wheel racing right here in the Metro? Get to Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs and see what it's like to race real go-karts. Joe's Karting knows it's no fun to race go-karts at 10 miles per hour, so they ripped the governors out, and now the only restriction is how good you are at racing. It's full-throttle, white-knuckle racing every day of the week. Head over to joeskarting.com for hours, prices, and specials, or give Buddy a call today and set up your group races at 712-256-5278.
We have all been there before. Broken car part in your hand and some snot-nosed punk behind the counter has no idea what he is talking about, but he guarantees that this part will fix your car. You pay an arm and a leg for the replacement, get it home, and sure enough, it doesn't fit your car. Now, learn from your mistake and give an experienced salesperson at Kosiski Auto Parts a call today at R02-342-3453. Kosiski Auto Parts will get you back on the road with your arms and legs still attached.
The Silver Dollar Nationals are returning to I-80 Speedway on July 18th, 19th, and 20th. Don't miss the nation's top USMTS, MLRA, and Lucas Oil dirt late model racers as they compete at Nebraska's fastest track. Come watch the nation's best dirt track racers compete for a $27,000 to win payout. Ticket prices and packages at 402-342-3453. The third annual Silver Dollar Nationals at I-80 Speedway, July 18th, 19th, and 20th.
You're listening to The Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio. Brought to you by Kosiski Auto Parts and Team PRP. Premium recycled parts at an affordable price.
Welcome back to Turn 3 here on The Front Stretch, presented by Kosiski Auto Parts, 51st and I Street. We continue our Legends of the Dirt series, talking with Kyle Berck, legendary driver in the Midwest and throughout the country. Kyle, thanks so much for sitting down and talking with us.
Well, it's my privilege. I appreciate the opportunity, and it sounds like we'll have some fun.
Well, we only hope, but we never really know exactly how these interviews are going to go. But if it's anything like the conversation off air, we ought to have a lot of fun.
I'm sure it'll be just fine.
Kyle, let's start from the beginning, which is the easiest place to start. Talk about how you got involved in racing and when you knew this was what you wanted to do as a career.
Well, it's been long ago enough that some of those memories are getting lost a little bit. But as a young boy growing up on the farm, we had three-wheelers and motorcycle and just some of that stuff like a lot of farm kids or other kids do. And my dad was kind of the race nut. He used to go and watch races, and when I was really young, he ran a hobby stock or a street stock type car. This was what would really be a hobby, I guess, not like we are nowadays. But anyway, so he always had the little bit of the racing bug in him, not as much as Joe's dad or Andrew's grandpa. But so when I grew up about 8-10 years old, we was going to watch races, sprint cars, late models, that kind of stuff. I remember even watching Joe Kosiski run down at Belleville, Kansas, when they had the bigger cars, big motors. I don't know if it was a full wedge car, but I remember that night Gary Hauserman went over the wall and turned 1 and 2, and that was a long, long time ago, and he landed out on the parking lot out on the ground. But anyway.
Was that down at Belleville, Joe?
Yeah, he went out of the ballpark the one night. I do remember that also. And that place is wide open when you go out of the racetrack there.
You know, as a little kid seeing the speeds in those cars back then at Belleville, I had no dreams that I'd be ever racing on that track, let alone racing a full-blown late model at all. But it's just some of the memories that stick in my mind. And of course, watching, all the Kosiskis, when I was younger, race and all that, as a kid, that was just, a dream come true that I actually could race, let alone race against them. And so, we started when I was 10 years old. My dad took me to a go-kart track down in Cam Raceway down in Hastings. And a friend of my dad said, hey, bring your boy down, come watch. And, what 10-year-old boy that's been messing around on motorcycles and three-wheelers and going to watching car races wouldn't think he's got to do that? So I think it was 2 weeks later, we had a cart and off racing we went, and my dad says, he tells people, he said, I thought it'd just be kind of a father-son little hobby thing. And, it grew out of control.
But it's still a hobby thing for dad and son.
It is. We call it that, but I don't think the rest of our families call it that.
How long did you actually race in the go-karts?
For 4 years. I raced till I was 14, and the following year when I was going to turn 15, we were trying to make a decision. We'd won a lot of the kart races around. There was only 2 tracks that we could race at, the Cam Raceway in Hastings, and then David City, Waimata Speedway. Used to be out north of David City there, and we raced Friday and Saturday nights at them tracks for 4 years, never missed a night, and had won a lot, and it come to a point, it was kind of getting the bug that, hey, we want to move on, but at the time, the IMC Modifieds were just brand new. into this area of the country or probably anywhere. And we really looked at probably was going to do that. And I remember Larry Danhauer, my dad's cousin, built engines in Lincoln, Nebraska for a long time. I remember him telling us that if your goal is to be in a late model, just skip all that other stuff. If you can afford it and are brave enough, just get to the late model. And that's what we done. And so my very first race in a full-size car was a practice day at, what was the old racetrack in Lincoln there? It's gone now, Midwest Speedway. And I remember at my very first laps was ever made at Midwest where they ran the sprint cars. And we used to go down there and watch a bunch and watch the sprint cars. But that's where I made my first laps in a late model. And it was a lot different than I expected, I can tell you that.
I would never have thought that you were old enough to run back at Midwest Speedway. I mean, that Speedway there had a lot of tradition, a lot of rich history here in eastern Nebraska. I mean, anybody and everybody that I can think of that's a big name or is a legend has raced there.
Hey, bud, remember the name of the name of this show is Legends. You know, this is the Legends of racing. Sure. And Kyle's starting to get old enough. Don't just pick on us old guys, but Kyle is getting old enough to know what Midwest is.
I see Kyle Berck, and I'm looking at a 35-year-old father of, a couple little kids.
Yeah.
Now
I think three kids.
Let's clear something up. There is no such thing as being old. It's being wise.
Wise, okay. Yeah. Joe would be a little wiser than me, and probably every meaning of that word. But,
that's our polite way of calling somebody old on this show, is to say they have a lot of wisdom. They appreciate
that more and more, probably.
Bud's like 2 or 3 years old in that case, but.
Yeah, my dad used to take me down on his motorcycle, and we'd go on Sunday nights to Midwest and watch the sprint cars, Lloyd Beckman and, all them guys. And my dad wanted to go into the pits to hang out with his guys, and I used to go over in the grandstands and wait till I seen a couple that looked friendly enough. I could say, hey, can I come in with you into the grandstands? And because I could get in cheaper. So if I walked in by myself, it cost me more. So I went in and once I got in the grandstands, I was on my own all night long. And it's just weird memories, I guess. But then my sister, Belinda, which has been hugely instrumental in my race operation, she started coming. Well, we no longer could take the motorcycle, so then we drove the car down, and then her and I'd go over there together, and we'd bet all night long who's going to win this heat race and who's going to win the features. We just really loved watching the races.
That first night that you got into your full-size car, your late model, kind of, if you can, I mean, I think any racer on their first night of racing can remember that night. What do you remember about that night?
I always thought, going into that night that the guys that run them late models must be superheroes and supernatural, and because they seem so fast, when you're watching them. And don't get me wrong, they are faster, and they're probably quite a bit faster nowadays because of technology and horsepower and whatnot. But when I got in the car, racing a go-kart, a go-kart is you're sitting on the ground, you can see your wheels, you have total vision out in front of you, and the tracks are smaller, so the scale accordingly, horsepower to size of track and all those things, the late model car didn't seem to be as much faster accordingly as what I expected it to be, but it did seem to, we had suspension, and the car moved and rolled around itself, and that just spooked me there for probably actually about 3 or 4 nights of trying to get used to that because the go-kart course is rigid with no suspension. But I remember it felt like I was driving a semi compared to the go-kart, meaning the steering wheel was big, and I had to turn and turn and turn on it, to turn in the corner. Then I turn back the other way, and the steering seemed so slow and so big, Of course, the go-kart was extremely the other way. So a lot of getting used to the steering and the suspension. But my actually first race night was down at Beatrice Speedway, and Johnny the Jet was the king down there. There might have been some other guys, just that name, of course, rings in your head when you're young, But Johnny the Jet, that was his home track, and I remember going down to Beatrice, my very first race, and I come in after the heat race, and all I can remember that night is I told Dad, I said, I can't hold my head up. And he's like, what? And he says, I said, I can't hold my head. About a few laps into it, my head feels like it's falling out the right side of the car. And he's like, well, I don't know what we're going to do about that. So we took a bungee strap and wrapped it around the roll bar left of my helmet and drilled and pop riveted a hook in my left side of my helmet and hooked my helmet to the roll cage of the car for that night to hold my head up. So things have come a long way since then.
I don't ever want to hear a redneck joke about my racing again.
we don't use bungee straps anymore.
Something a little more sophisticated, maybe
something a little more, yeah. Saber, thank goodness for technology in that department, yeah.
I was going to say, did you upgrade to duct tape? Or?
Well, we did for a few years after that, and then on come some other neat things, and now, of course, the Hans devices and the other head neck restraint systems, which get the job done really well.
So talk about after that. You've got a couple of wins in your belts. You're a Taurus Series champion, NCRA Series champion, MLAR. Have raced in the points in there. What is probably one of your favorite wins of your career? Something, it doesn't necessarily have to be a championship, but something that you're very proud of. You kind of puff your chest out a little more because of that win.
Well, I say, like I've heard other drivers that have raced for, have a career, and we've been blessed with a very good career. So there are several memories that, it's hard to pick one. You hear that a lot. But one of them that I probably use now, when I'm talking, like we're here building race cars right now, at sports race cars, and things that I bring up if I'm using an example is, and I remember the year better than I do, but in 2008-ish, I think it was, we lapped the field at I-80 Speedway. And, it was a special event. Billy Moyer was there. In fact, he ran second in the race. Joe, I believe he ran third, if I remember that correctly.
Yeah, exactly. I remember it also.
Kyle, you didn't lap the field. You started last, I believe.
Well,
Passed everyone and then lapped them.
I don't mean to drive a nail in the coffin, but it is truly a race that, never in my career, let alone probably almost anybody's, can you start in a backup car dead last and pass the field twice.
Well,
in what was a 50-lap race, I remember 50, I think it was. Just a night that, the next year we came back with the same car, the same motor, the same setup, and I think we ran about fifth in the race. We didn't lap anybody.
I remember that exact race. I was running third, and I'm sitting there running within bumper distance of Billy Moyer, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I've got a good run going. And all of a sudden, they're throwing the move-over flag. Well, I knew Kyle passed us, but damn, he was lapping us.
How many times do you have to get the move over before you realize they were talking to you?
Well, at first I thought they was talking to the other guys that me and Billy were passing at the time, but then I realized what was going on.
Yeah. Huh.
And some of that is, I look at that when I'm using my racetrack, my home track that I call really I-80 Speedway. It's my favorite track, not just because of that night. We've got a lot of good results in that track over the years, but it also shows how racy that track is. I mean, not just because I've done that. There's been many other nights we've done, and other people have too, astounding things on that track. But it's not uncommon to be four wide, and when you can pass that many cars that many times in that short of a race, that speaks a lot to the racetrack, and that's why I think I-80 had so much success, and racers really love going there because there's a lot of different lines and grooves you can pick and choose to make it happen.
Kyle, back when you started racing the late models, you watched the Kaziskis growing up as a kid. You watched Joe Kaziski in a late model, and, you referred to them as superheroes going that fast with that kind of car control. Kind of give us your mentality on what it was like when you first suited up and went against these guys, and then what was it like when you actually beat these guys? Probably
what sticks in my mind is memories, good or bad. Sunset Speedway. You had to be 16. The first year I started racing late models, I was 15 when I went to Midwest Speedway in Beatrice. That was 15 years old then, and didn't have a driver's license. So at the time, I believe Sunset and those Eagle was NASCAR sanctioned, and you had to be 16 to be able to race there. Well, I turned 16 August 30th is my birthday, and so we was able, end of August or early September, to go down to Sunset Speedway. And I think probably Larry Danhauer again had told my dad that, toughest track around. That place is all about car control and all that. And if he doesn't spin out the first night, he's probably not trying hard enough. I spun out 3 times in my first main event at Sunset Speedway, and they black flagged me off the racetrack.
So that
is a memory that sticks in my head that I don't share a lot. I couldn't even make it through a full night at Sunset Speedway. That's how tough that burger was. Reversing the role there at Sunset because of, it was an extremely tough track. And Joe and all the Kaziskis and Dave Chase and Bill Martin and all those guys, that is a place that sticks in my mind and heart in Will, and I'm sure Joe's also. But again, I'm terrible with memories, but I think in 93-ish, we won a track championship there. And at the time, honestly, we probably shouldn't have. We did. No championship is luck. I really honestly believe that. But we were a little premature in doing that. Things fell our way. I don't remember the circumstances with Joe or Steve or Dave Chase or whatever all was going on, because those were the dominant cars at that period of time. We got a championship, and that was so cool and so neat. And, we took a little slag, a little luck, a little this, a little that, and I understand. But we was able to go and do it again, and I don't believe it was the next year. Several years later before we got our ducks in a row enough to do that. I think around the 98, I believe, was the next one, like 4 or 5 years later. But winning, being black flag there, and then going in and winning the championship when we were young, and the greenhorn from, out in the middle of Nebraska, and then also coming back and doing it again in better fashion in 98. Those are neat memories.
Is there a driver that you've competed against and watched even when you were younger and just starting to get into the sport that you hold them up to that upper echelon that's who you wanted to be like?
I've always said when I was younger there's 2, And this may step on a little bit of some toes, but hopefully not too much, because he put me on the spot. I got Joe Koziski, a mentor racer, a wiser racer than me on the line here. But Billy Moyer, hands down, we used to come down to Florida and watch racing and at speed weeks and whatnot, and just always watching him operate, not just on the racetrack, but in the pits. He was calm, he was cool, he's collected, he's a thinker, he worked with his hands, he understood that race car. If it wasn't right, he worked on the car and changed what he thought he needed to make the car better. And I really, really watched that compared to a lot of others, and I just tried to role model how I operated in the pits and also on the racetrack. His nickname is Mr. Smooth, and there's reasons for it. He is my role model on the big level. When it comes down to not far below that, I always put Steve Koziski in that close category. And don't get me wrong, Dave Chase, Joe Koziski, many others right there, but if you have one, it's Billy Moyer, and probably two is Steve Koziski. That smooth, consistent, just you hardly know he's there until the end of the race a lot of times, but he's there and he takes them wins. Don't get me wrong. Joe's whipped me around many, many, many times and won more than his share of races. Well, a little bit different fashion maybe and a different driving style. Don't mean one's right or wrong. My hero is Billy Moyer and then Steve Koziski.
Yeah, Joe's giving me the wrap it up signal now. He's about tired of talking to you.
Kick him off. He's done. Oh, bad connection. Goodbye.
I don't know what happened.
That's not true. That's not true. I've always known that's been your two heroes, or your two that you looked up to when you was young, and that doesn't bother me none. I know they're great racers. And as you sit down and all the people you've talked about, this Racing Legends show, I'm sitting here looking at the people, and we tried to pick out legends to put on this show, and I want you to understand kind of where you fit in. Dave Chase is going to be on the show with Bill Martin and Bob Koziski. Scott Bloomquist is going to be on the show in January. We've already got that okay. Jimmy Owens is going to be on the show. Billy Moyer is going to be on the show. Brian Burkhofer is going to be on the show. We've talked to all these people, and they've said Doug Wolfgang, we have not totally got him coming on the show. But when you're sitting here putting names down and thinking about who you're going to be with, Terry Phillips and Kelly Shyrock were on the show the last 2 weeks. This is just a short segment between NASCAR and NASCAR that we're doing this Racing Legends. So we want you to be aware of the people that we put you up with as being one of the legends in dirt racing.
Well, that is really cool because a lot of those names you mentioned, are truly the heroes right now, the Owens and Bloomquist and those guys. And don't get me wrong, they are heroes of mine, but they're still currently, racing at full fashion. So I guess I classify that a little bit different. But yeah, that's the names of who's who in the dirt late model world, and I feel.
Well, and yeah, that's a part of it too. Is that we kind of looked at it and said, Kyle's still racing, but when he does retire, he's easily going to be one of those guys that's in the Legends series. So
very neat. I appreciate that. That's neat.
Hey, Kyle, I got a question for you, real quick. I kind of want to know the story because I can't get myself to want any girl to help me on a car. How did you and Belinda, from the beginning, get so hooked up and now just stuck together forever? I mean, you put a lot of trust into her, and she's really smart and a really tough worker. I mean, she was grooving, grinding tires down at Lakeside. She's always working on the car, helping you out on the racetrack. She's the eye in the pits that you get to look at every single time you go around the corner. How did you trust not only just, a female, but your own sister? I couldn't do it. My sisters, I would never allow to do that.
Your sisters would cut your tires.
I would never want them to do that.
they would cut them probably with a knife and say, "There, you're done. Get out. You're flat. You can't go race." But when you're young, things within families, some kids get along and some don't. And I have a sister that's older, like 4 years older than me. She was enough older than me. She liked horses when he was growing up. We lived out on a farm. We had horses. Dad kind of worked with her in the horse thing, and he made me ride them horses because I was the boy and I was the younger one, and get up on that thing, get bucked off, do it again, blah, blah, blah. So I hated horses after a few years because I was forced to ride them. I liked a lot of horses, like give me 800 of them, not one. But so my older sister did the horse thing, and she went on to college and married off, and she lives out by Ainsworth, out in cowboy country, so perfect for her. Belinda is a year older than me, and she basically, I think early on, got drug into it, meaning, again, we was going to watch races, and so she's home alone, bored. We're talking when her, 6, 8, 10 years old. And pretty soon she started going watching at Midwest and Sunset Speedway and other tracks around, and kind of got hooked on it. We'd watch them together. And we really, really, from that point on, have been absolutely the best of friends you could ever be. For having a brother-sister relationship, I cannot imagine having any closer relationship. Do we always get along? Do we always agree? Absolutely not. In fact, we probably agree less often than what people think. But we get over it so quick, so easy, or she challenges me in the right way, and I can take it without being personally offended or without being offended for very long anyway. So, she learned the racing with us, and she wanted to. And it is, I really take it for granted. I mean, I must admit, after all these years, it's just part of it. But once in a while, she'd say, hey, I can't make it this coming weekend. And I'm like, what? Well, I don't know if we're going then. And she's like, well, yeah, you can go without me. I'm like, I don't know. It's so weird. It's hard for me to imagine going racing without her. She's just that instrumental to the team, even this day and age for us.
She's like a good crew chief. You can always have your out with them, but there's that challenge that they want to give you that they're right and you're right, and it makes you better. And I can see that. I can see that between you two 100%.
Yeah. It's hard to explain, but we are, for brothers and sisters, we're best of friends, and she is by far the most awesome crew chief that I could ever expect. Is she super smart with the race cars? No, but I can tell you this: many times we've been out in the field, and I'm talking to her on the radio or the phone while she's scaling the car. She's changing the gears from one track to the next. She's getting the tires mounted, getting them grooved, organizing stuff. I come in the shop, and I like to at least look at the car while it's on the scale so I can feel involved, but there's been times that hasn't happened. She's got it scaled. It's down on the ground. She's ready to push it in the trailer. Does that happen all the time? Does she love doing that? No. Is she capable? Absolutely.
How many times has your mom and dad, had to break up a fight between you two?
Probably when I was younger, I have a weird memory, and she doesn't let me forget it sometimes, but I was playing Cowboys and Indians, and I had my little BB gun, and don't get me wrong, this is a BB gun that couldn't even hardly kill a bird, but she went driving by in a three-wheeler, and I jumped out from behind a tree and shot her in the back. I don't know what got into me. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not even a gun nut, but I really didn't mean to do it, but I did, and it hurt her. She wasn't 30, 40 feet away, and she's like, what was that? And so she went crying. I said, don't tell Mom, don't tell Dad, don't tell. Where she went in the house crying. She had a little welt on her back, and I got in trouble for that one pretty good. I don't think I'm still allowed to shoot a gun after that, but
has she gotten back at you with racing and said, that's for the BB gun?
Oh, I think more times than I'll ever know, really.
We'll continue to talk with Kyle Berck as a part of the Legends of the Dirt series right here on the Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
Kosiski Auto Parts is the Metro's premier auto parts store. Located at 50th and I Street, Kosiski Auto Parts will help you find the replacement part you need to get back on the road. Give one of their experienced salespeople a call today at 731-4592. Let Kosiski Auto Parts and Team PRP find your quality used replacement parts. Kosiski Auto Parts offers warranties on all parts that leave their store, so you have peace of mind. Open Monday to Friday, 8 to 5:30 or 24 hours a day at Kosiski.com.
The Silver Dollar Nationals are returning to I-80 Speedway on July 18th, 19th, and 20th. Don't miss the nation's top USMTS, MLRA, and Lucas Oil dirt late model racers as they compete at Nebraska's fastest track. Come watch the nation's best dirt track racers compete for a $27,000 to win payout. Ticket prices and packages at 402-342-3453. The third annual Silver Dollar Nationals at I-80 Speedway, July 18th, 19th, and 20th.
Are you ready for fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping, wheel-to-wheel racing right here in the Metro? Get to Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs and see what it's like to race real go-karts. Joe's Karting knows it's no fun to race go-karts at 10 miles per hour, so they ripped the governors out, and now the only restriction is how good you are at racing. It's full-throttle, white-knuckle racing every day of the week. Head over to joeskarting.com for hours, prices, and specials, or give Buddy a call today and set up your group races at 712-256-5278.
This is the Front Stretch on AM 590, powered by Kosiski Auto Parts. Quality used parts at an affordable price. Now, back to the Front Stretch.
Welcome back to the Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio. We continue our conversation with the driver of the number 14 late model out of Marquette, Nebraska in this Legends of the Dirt series. It's Kyle Berck. Kyle, I'm looking on your screen here on your stats page, and I apologize if I'm off on your stats, but it looks like you're sitting at win 290.
I'm probably the world's worst stat. Let me call Blend and ask her. That's how that goes. I know we're in that vicinity. Honestly, we're in that. I know we're closing in on 300. I haven't followed that close. People ask me how many races I've won this year, and I've been saying 16, and somebody else 18 or 17. I'm not as good on those number things as I should be, but I know we're in that range.
Do you think the Silver Dollar Nationals is going to be your 300th win?
I think if I could win that, I would count that good for 100 wins, or at least for 80 wins. Hey, that's a good number. I would love that to be 300. That means I can win, 7 or 8 races ahead of that. That would be perfect. I love that, Joe. That's my goal. That's going to be my 300th win. I love it.
One big story in NASCAR this year has been that 200th win that Hendrick Motorsports got. And that's 200 wins as an organization. For you, you're looking at getting up there to win 300. How special is it going to be to get that win? And is it going to be a milestone, or is that something you're going to just kind of say, okay, that's a big achievement, but let's go back next week?
I honestly think that it's probably going to be more of an achievement, and we might make a little bit bigger of a deal about it maybe than what I would have said, 2 or 3, 4 years ago, because we were far enough away from that. I really wasn't thinking about it at all. I'm a little wiser than I was 4, 5, 10 years ago. Not a lot of racers, no matter what class or form they race, really get to that point. And, Joe and Steve, I don't know their numbers, but I know they're quite large. But you're talking the best that's ever been in our state. So more than likely our fans and then maybe even family might think we need to make that a little bit bigger deal than what I personally would feel. But that is going to be a neat day if that comes, and hopefully it comes this year.
With all the wins that we were just talking about, and possibly being the Silver Dollar Nationals 3 being your 300th win, anybody that knows who Kyle Berck is from Marquette, Nebraska knows that you are nicknamed the Marquette Missile. How did that name come about?
In all honesty, I over the years, I actually think the announcer either at Sunset or I'm not sure if it started at I-80, but back in that middle of between I-80 and Sunset period, I think that's where it started from the announcer. I have never personally used that. Not that I don't really like it, but I've never been a fan of nicknames. I guess growing up, it just none of our family does that. I'm down here with Audie Schwartz here in Ohio building cars, and everybody he knows, everybody that works for him, everybody he knows has got a nickname. It's just what they do. For me, I didn't grow up with that. So the Marquette Missile, I guess, it's cute, it's catchy, it's neat. It's not that I don't like it, but personally, we never started it, and I personally don't, put it on my car. But it is getting kind of catchy, and it does kind of stick, and I'm not actually sure where it started from, but it's kind of cool. It is.
I think it should be on your car, right on the roof of your car, the Marquette Missile. And I'll tell you why, because I sit and the more I'm spending in the grandstand area, you listen to the kids, and there's one name that stands out no matter how you want to look at it. It's Johnny the Jet and
sure.
the Marquette Missile. And I forget what the one is for Jesse Sobbing, but they've got a nickname, Crazy or something like that, Jesse Sobbing. And them little 4 and 5-year-old kids, you would not believe, them are the only people they ever talk about is the people that's got the real nickname that they got some reason to put them as somebody else. It just makes a terrific hero out of them. And for us to keep the kids growing, I'm hoping you do put the name Marquette Missile on the roof of your car.
Well, I will run that up the flagpole, which, of course, would be my sister. She designs the lettering on the car, the color of the car. She pretty much says, here, get in, shut up, and drive. I will see what she says.
Well, have her listen to the radio show so she can hear our point of it then on Sunday. It's on AM 590. I believe you can get it in Marquette, Nebraska.
AM radio, surely we can reach that.
Yeah, AM 590. But that's the ESPN radio station here in Omaha, so it's a great station.
And, everybody recognizes it. This is the old WLW signal.
Oh, okay.
So now everyone's like, oh, okay, I remember listening to that station. Well, now we got ESPN on it, and damn fine NASCAR talk, by the way, if I may say so myself. One win you got this year was at Lakeside Speedway. First time I actually got to see you race up close and personal, and I tell you what, put a hell of a show on that Friday night that Bud and I went down there and watched you, and Joe and Andrew and all the guys. Can you talk about that win a little bit? And then I guess Bud has some new news about Lakeside Speedway.
After designing our own car last year ago, I sat in this very shop where I am in here in southern Ohio, kind of designing my own thing and having Audie Schwartz and his guys build it. A lot of questions and a lot of maybe some doubts behind the scenes, going into this last year. It ended up being one of our best years we've had in a long time. But to win at our local level, don't get me wrong, that is neat, and that's not easy. To win at the NASCAR Weekly deal or even the SLMR Series, but we had been doing that, so just to do that again wouldn't maybe say volumes to what we've built or designed, but to back it up with, we won some NCRA races, we won some MLRA races, and we went to Lakeside, which is one of the toughest crowds or, combination of race cars and classes, guys all coming together. It's probably one of my most favorite places to race because we don't go there very often. It's a very neat racetrack, and the crowd base is just gigantic, and there's people watching us that normally don't get to. So we all want to do well when we go there, and we've done well there in the past, but the last few years we hadn't. And to rebound back this year and get that win, it was personally probably more satisfying to me than I want to admit. To do that at the end of the year when he had some good runs going and to win that race there, it gave me a lot of confidence of what I'm building right now, setting the stage to build cars in the future. It was a neat win for me in a lot of ways. It's hard to describe, but the track was racy, the car was good, and all things clicked, and that's the results. You got a good car and a good crew, and you can be in the winner's circle in any given night.
You're listening to The Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio. Joined this morning on the phone and a part of our Legends of the Dirt series, Kyle Berck, the number 14 driver with the late model series.
Hey, Kyle, talk about your car real quick. I know you built it. Is there any for sale? How much are they? What's somebody got to do? I know you haven't done any yet. Me personally, I know this information, but I mean for everybody listening out there that wants to know, because you're going to be a future car builder one day. I mean, what does it run? I mean, we've talked to other people before about their cars, Bloomquist and whatnot. What's yours run?
That is yet to be determined price-wise. We're a little early in the stage. I'm not sure, where I want this to go in the future, and I'm not sure that it can go. If I had aspirations for it to really sell a lot, I don't even know if we could sell a lot, and really that's not my goal. Right now my goal is to build, design, and build what I want, a car focused on hard tires, slick racetracks, getting all the traction we can possibly design into this car. We're using the Swartz chassis, his basic platform, but we've changed so much on the basic Swartz design that we're currently right now building our own jig while we're here, because his jig won't even work to build my design. We've moved so much. We've relocated the engine. We've relocated the cockpit where the driver sits and all that weight of all that. We've relocated the rear end, the fuel cell, the type of tubing we use, where the tubing connects on the car. Almost every aspect of it is different, but still with a little bit of the Swartz plan to it. He's willing to work with me in that magnitude, which is neat, because I'm not capable of bending the tubing and welding it together. I know what I want to have done, and their workmanship is up to my standards anyway, and he was willing to take it on. It's going to be a slow go. We're just now building a jig to build the second frame that I would have ever built for this coming year. Once we get that proven well, my goal is to be able to offer the cars next year for sale. We haven't set a price yet because we're going to have to see, how much we get involved in the tubing and the jig and the time and factor all that into it. They're not going to be a cheap car. I plan on selling no more than necessary, but selling them to people that really understand what they're paying for. They're going to pay a premium, but I'm going to offer, information, 30-plus years of experience. And these guys I sell them to, I plan on, more than they realize, I plan on putting them into the winner's circle. It won't be all about me. They're going to have to be capable of setting up and maintaining and understanding the car and what to do with it also. It needs to be in the right hands, kind of on a small scale what Scott Bloomquist does. His cars are, very, very pricey, and he's probably got more guys from what I've heard that want to buy them than what he takes on. Just because you got the money doesn't mean he wants you. I'm going to probably be a little bit like that, but at a much smaller scale. As I slowed down my own racing, I can foresee me being involved in racing with helping other young racers or racers that can win in cars that I've designed. I get a lot of satisfaction in that. It's a huge challenge for me, and I love it. I really do.
Talk about that a little bit. You kind of hinted at it a little bit as your racing slows down. Have you begun to kind of think about your exit strategy, or are you still just enjoying taking those W's?
Well, after the year we had here, what racer doesn't like a winning season? It's in my mind. I'm trying to be realistic. I know we're not going to race forever. I started at a very young age. I started when I was 10 in the go-karts. I'm 42 now. It's 32 years. Done a long, long time at a very high level for still trying to be a farmer, and then a husband, and now 3 kids, selling cars to customers, representing 2 chassis brands, and now designing my own. There's only so much a guy can do. So, no, I don't know how soon it'll be when I start exiting out. It may be a little bit of a slow exit, probably like we've seen Al Humphrey, Joe Koziski, and others do. Right now, we've got lots of good opportunities to race around, and we don't need to go 8 hours from home to do it. That's really, really neat, and hats off to Joe and everybody at I-80 for providing, good weekly racing and the SLMR series and bring in national events. I mean, what more could a guy ask for, and drive an hour and a half from home? I don't have any near plans of slowing down, but that day will come. It's just probably not in the real near future.
Kyle, thanks so much for sitting down with us tonight. We greatly appreciate it. And what's 2013 look like? You got a full schedule ready to go, or are you still kind of working those details?
Well, we're certainly working out details. Right now I'm obviously focused on getting this car built and designed the way I want it to be, and And then time that all settles down, I would say there'll be schedules will be released, and we can look a little more accurate at what's going on. I think it's going to be a lot like last year. I love racing at I-80. I love what they got going on. We want to support that. I wish McCool Junction would run more late model special events, but they do have quite a few, so we're going to hit those. I'm going to say we're going to keep it within a 4-ish hour radius at home, and that covers lots of NASCAR weekly racing, SLMR racing, and NCRA and MLRA and special events when they come in that vicinity. I can go back and farm. I can play dad and husband and do all I need to do and still race in that radius and pull it all off.
But we are going to see you at the Silver Dollar Nationals next year?
Oh, I absolutely, and we're going to be determined to put a better showing in there than what we did. We left there a little bit disappointed. I look back at my statistics for the year, and we had a slump right during the summer, and it wasn't just that week. Leading into that, and for the next week or two after that, we really had our worst month was right around the Silver Dollar Nationals, but good things. Our last month of the year was my best results, so I'm confident building from that going into the future. I'm very determined to have a good showing there. Win the race, who wouldn't want to win it? Crack a top 5, that would be awesome for me, and that's our goal, is to let them know that we really do exist and we know that track well, and we can go out of there with a lot of pride.
Oh, great. We can't wait to see you out on the track next year, and I think, Bud, you got one last?
Yeah, I was just going to tell Kyle maybe we'll even show up with a brand new BB gun for him.
Yeah, don't let my sister see you hanging on that, though. She'll run like crazy.
Or she'll charge.
Yeah, right. She'll take you down.
She's old enough now to where she can charge back at you.
Right. You're not going to fool her that easy now.
I know
no cowboys and Indians anymore.
I know from experience, those pump-action BB guns, it takes a lot to get a couple of rounds off. Kyle, thanks for joining us. Have a great night. Have a great off-season. A Merry Christmas, and can't wait to see you back out on the dirt.
Thanks for the opportunity. I really do appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Kyle Berck, driver of the number 14 late model, great guy, and I tell you, I think it was you were telling me we were down at Lakeside last year. You said whenever we interview this guy, we're never going to get him to talk. We're never going to get him to talk, and I think you were being a little facetious.
Whatever facetious means,
I was
yeah,
just going to say that.
If you can see my face, I'm going, facetious, what?
That was Kyle, a part of our Legends of the Dirt series. Next week, we're going to sit down with Todd Staley, the president and promoter of USMTS, the series that runs around here, so we'll talk with him. I had a great conversation with him last week, so we'll play that this week. If you want to get a full list of the schedule, head over to our Facebook page. We'll be posting it as the schedule matures and is confirmed. So head over there to our Facebook page, and you can also always tune in each Sunday morning and listen to AM 590 as we promote it. So we'll be back next weekend with another great edition of The Front Stretch. We hope you have a great weekend, and Christmas is just around the corner, guys.
I better start shopping.
You better start shopping. We got one show left until we get to the 1 or 2 shows left till we get to Christmas, but that's how I'm gauging it, is how many front stretches left until we get to Christmas. Maybe it's just me. All right, have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us. This has been The Front Stretch, presented by Koziski Auto Parts, 51st and I Street on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
The Silver Dollar Nationals are returning to I-80 Speedway on July 18th, 19th, and 20th. Don't miss the nation's top USMTS, MLRA, and Lucas Oil dirt late model racers as they compete at Nebraska's fastest track. Come watch the nation's best dirt track racers compete for a $27,000 to win payout. Ticket prices and packages at 402-342-3453. The third annual Silver Dollar Nationals at I-80 Speedway, July 18th, 19th, and 20th.
We have all been there before. Broken car part in your hand and some snot-nosed punk behind the counter has no idea what he is talking about, but he guarantees that this part will fix your car. You pay an arm and a leg for the replacement, get it home, and sure enough, it doesn't fit your car. Now, learn from your mistake and give an experienced salesperson at Koziski Auto Parts a call today at R02-342-3453. Koziski Auto Parts will get you back on the road with your arms and legs still attached.
Are you ready for fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping, wheel-to-wheel racing right here in the Metro? Get to Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs and see what it's like to race real go-karts. Joe's Karting knows it's no fun to race go-karts at 10 miles per hour, so they ripped the governors out, and now the only restriction is how good you are at racing. It's full-throttle, white-knuckle racing every day of the week. Head over to joeskarting.com for hours, prices, and specials, or give Buddy a call today and set up your group races at 712-256-5278.